Learn. We call it Learn, Practice, and Share with the Red Cross and all the programs and things at redcross.org that you could learn about. But I want you to learn something for yourself today, at least one thing that you remember, you maybe heard before, but you're going to amplify it and take it with you on what you can do. And when we learn about that today, then you could take home and practice wherever you go, at work, at church, at organizations, at meetings, rec centers, senior centers. When you visit, you could be learning about how you practice these different things. And wherever you go, once you learn something for yourself, share what you know, however much it is. You may help somebody else from getting hurt or share and protect their life. So today you had to learn at least one thing that you're going to do, and you practice it. And when you get home, you do it as soon as you can and you share it with others. That's all we have to do. Do we need to be ready for anything? Right? Why do we need to be ready? Well, sometimes if it's big and bad emergency, or like we had some storms come through the area yesterday, or there's fires or floods, help may be delayed. The fire and rescue and the police can sometimes come in 5 to 8 minutes, but if it's big and bad across the whole region, they may not be able to come in the 5 to 8 minutes and 10 minutes they usually can. So learning how to be ready is good because help may be delayed, right? You have to learn how to and be prepared to take care of yourself, the people that are around you, your household, neighbors, and responders. I put responders in here because I need you to know what to say when they come. So when the responders come, you could tell them how bad it is because you already know, things like that. So you need to be ready. Here's a link for you, the Red Cross, and it's / Get Help Now to prepare for emergencies. Excellent. That's a whole program and a whole training that you could do at your own pace. A lot of information and resources. And it also points to you for what you can do where you live in your location. So we're learning about the hazards, emergencies, disasters. The wind in some parts of the country, it's hurricane season, right? Some places we get here where I am, what we call man-made. We have the interstate we call the Beltway. And do you know that there's those 18-wheelers, those trucks carrying hazard material sometime at 2, 4 in the morning for some reason, the trucks turn over? That's a man-made. Sometimes you have a big truck coming through your neighborhood. Maybe there was winds and it pulls down the power lines and the truck knocks out the power for that whole community. That's a man-made emergency, disaster, and you need to know what to do if the power goes out. So we're going to learn about the weather today. We learn about the things that are man-made. And what does preparing do? It helps you stay safe. And then there's challenges. Okay, so if you find out that a truck hit the power line and took out the power on your street, we're going to adapt to that challenge. What happens if the power's out one day, one night, 3 days? It's been out 5 days in my community when a truck hit the utility pole. And then it helps you recover quicker than you could have, right? Look what's important here. This is very important to know that what happens where you live. There's my friend there, and he's got his little window to the world. He's gonna know about all the alerts. He's got on his handheld his phone plus his laptop. He knows what the weather's coming. There's that radio. I highly recommend a crank radio that you crank it. They come in all different sizes and colors and price. I bought some for my family for Christmas. I bought everybody, they got a crank radio in different colors and sizes. And guess what? You can be informed. It's got the weather channel in it, and it has all the stations. The crank radio helps you then charge your phone and games and things. So it's also a flashlight. So being informed, plan right now how you'll get information if the power's out. And that's why I like the Crank portable radio. I understand what the weather alerts are. If they tell me I have a hurricane warning in my area, or do I have a hurricane watch? What does those things mean? Learn what it means in your area when they say, the law enforcement says everybody has to evacuate your street. Flooding is 2 blocks away, it's coming. Or there's problems, there's a fire coming. So you have to know and follow instructions from the authorities. You have to be informed. So find out what those agencies are ahead of time. How will you be informed about these emergencies and things? And when you're on the road someplace else, learn about where you are. It's very important to be informed and find out how you're going to be informed and what does that mean. I'm very interested in using the different technologies to be informed. And if you've got a smartphone, you could be looking that up now. Go to whatever kind of smartphone you have. Go check out the apps, say Red Cross apps. There's one called Emergency, and then there's one called First Aid. And why I like the First Aid one is you download that onto your handheld and you don't need the internet. It's like you have a first aid book like the nurse has at the school nurse. And there's different things in there. We have the emergency app and it can tell you where the shelters are. It can give you warnings and alerts. And we have a pet app for your pets and emergencies and pets. So go ahead on to check those applications in your smartphone and find out what these emergency alerts are and different ways that you can be informed and what are the websites that you could use on your computers and things like that. I need to very encourage everybody. This is a sample. There are online then ones you can download, fill in. It has 2 sides to it. And here, for whatever age you are, you should have some kind of summarized ID of who you are and contact phone numbers to help. I many times just use a 3x5 card. I put on this information of who I am and who to call if I'm unconscious or whatever. And then I have these in Ziploc bags and put them in all different places on my person, in my car, in my waist pack and things like that. So I'm very much on this first simple thing that people forget to put in a child's pocket or even fix up for a waist pack for the seniors that you have to know and what the medications are and things like that. Here's the back of it. All what I'm saying is this is something to learn about. Do you have some ID and some phone numbers that if I'm unconscious, you go through my pocket and the fire and rescue are trained to look for if you have this kind of 3x5 card or this printout, right? So what is the ID? But some people said, here's the ID of who I am, but they don't have on the call for emergencies. Now you'll know that some of your phones, your smartphones and other phones will be able to say, press this button and my emergency contacts will be called. So learn about that ahead of time, how you'll be notified and how other people can help you. This is important to know by learning about what you need, who you are, what you need, what your age is, what's happening, what's your medical, all ages, all kinds of people might need certain medical things. Physically, you know, if I sprain my ankle, I can't do the same things I could before. And if I'm tired, maybe I'm not thinking the same. So ask yourself, how do you feel? What do you need to know? What would happen if the power went out? What if I have to stay? What if I have to go? Think about and make notes. So you see our friend there, she's looking at all the ideas on what she needs to know and getting all her medicals and her finances, taking these inventories. looking at what you need, how to take care of you. Are you on oxygen? Do you have things that need batteries? What type of medications? Do you have a little bit of water set aside? What kind of food do you have if you can't go anywhere and buy any? So think about what you need, think about yourself, how to take care of yourself if something happened, and then maybe you'll be able to teach other people, oh, look at, you need some water in your house. You need some water with you. Incredibly, incredibly important. Build the support network. Identify helpers around you. And it starts many times with those you live with, the family, friends next door around, neighbors, caregivers, and care providers. So now we're thinking for all ages and all conditions, think about yourself, and you've got to do that telephone tree that you organized on your ID cards, your information cards. Who do you call? What do you need? Can you come and help me? I fell down. I need someone to pick me up. I need someone to call. So this is very important, building that network. And it becomes a plan by learning what you're going to do, thinking about what kind of help, how you're going to get help. In some areas, there's something called registries where you could register to say that you have someone in the household that's on oxygen, or they're upstairs in a special kind of bed, a hospital bed, they're often called. And there's registries to know that if the power goes out, then these people know this address has someone who will need then an emergency backup generator. And they'll let the authorities notify. All right. So find out what's available to you, and then make this contact information list available to all your helpers. So this is planning ahead. This is thinking about how you're going to communicate and call your helpers and your support network. And you got that set up before the emergency and the disaster, then you'll be able to know what to do. Guess what I found out? I found out that some of the senior centers and the assisted living and other high rise and homeowners associations and apartments, they actually have some kind of plans to know if something would happen. They know if they're in the flood area or the hurricane zone, things like that. So find out where you live, your community, or your high rise or apartments, or if they already have plans. Maybe they had something that they did when they first built the apartments or the assisted living, but you, by looking into it, you may encourage them to update their assisted living plan. So here's a point where you're looking and finding out some information for yourself so you could be ready if you need it, but you also may be helping your community update their plans. Remember, we had something very interesting when sometimes we're getting our 100-year rains and floods every 25 years. We're getting our 25-year rains every 5 years. So if the weather's changing, it probably means you need to check out and see what the community and housing plans are. Where can you go? What happens if you have to stay? Plan, plan, plan. If you have to shelter in place, you have to stay in place, or if you have to go, you're learning about where you are, what may happen, weather or man-made. You're learning about who's there with you, and if there's functional needs, who can't travel by themselves, who needs assistance, and about pets and service animals. So here, plan, plan, plan. Just like I told you that the Red Cross has an app for pets, and there's a whole kind of plans so that you can take care of your pets. If there's a fire and you have to move out with your pets, some shelters, some hotels will take pets, some will not. So about pets, plan, plan, plan. If you stay, if you go, learn ahead what hotels or what places can allow you to bring your pets, and what organizations come and help you with your pet. There are organizations that will come and help you if you get displaced for an emergency and things like that. Your families and your care providers, here's what to do. If you're a care provider, you may be part of the family. You may be helping somebody of any age, of any conditions, temporary or permanent, chronic. And here's what to know. If you're a provider, a care provider for someone that you live with or that you're paid for or volunteer for, you have to know what plans are in place for that person, right? And what supplies need to be available for the person you're taking care of. But remember what we started, we're learning a thing now. As a care provider, I already have to have my own waste pack of my own things if I have meds. So even though I'm a care provider in assisted living, I need to take care of myself. I need to have my protective equipment. Do I need to wear gloves? Do I need to wear face covering? Do I need to wear a special kind of a hat that they have? What are the things? So as the care providers have to have provision to take care of themselves in case emergencies, just like everybody else. But then they have to know about the person they're taking care of and what's the medical needs. The care providers have to keep their first aid up to date, and they have to know how to operate these devices. Can these devices be mobile if there's an emergency? Caregivers have to have a plan for themselves and equipment supplies for themselves, but now they have to learn about the caregiver. So if you have somebody in your home who's on special equipment, does that need a battery backup, or do you need a special skill how to run it and use it? So we're learning about uh, the care provider may need to teach others on how to communicate with the person they're in charge of. So if you're taking care of somebody who can't hear, but they can read lips, then when the fire and rescue come, right? When people come, then you have to say, here's how you have to deal with my client. My client can't hear you, or my client can't see, or my client can't talk. So it's very important that you as a care provider and caregiver know about how to explain to responders when they come to help you of how to take care of and work with the person you have. Many times the person that the caregiver is taking care of, um, they're already under some stress. Then if an emergency comes, and that you might have to know how to take care of that emotional support, right? And they really think it's a good idea to have pictures for the person you're taking care of to help you in case there's emergencies. Very important thing if you're a provider and a caregiver, you learn about taking care of yourself and then the others. Learn about where you live and what's happening. So in the chat, I'd like you to put in where you're from and if you have any of these conditions. So one, if I was typing in the chat where I'm living, if it's 95 degrees 3 or 4 days in a row, they call that a heat wave. So put in the chat, do you get any of these on this slide? Do you get extreme heat? Right? What do you get? Are there home fires where you live? You know, are there wildfires anywhere? Who's anybody out there who's seen or know someone who's with the wildfires? Tell us in the chat if you've experienced any of these. I think we're going where I am, got this extreme heat. And yes, yesterday there was a home fire. Learn about what emergencies can happen and what's happening now. It's our hurricane season in some part of the country. We've got wildfires, right? Look at this map of the weather map and what color is it? And where do you live? Where do you travel? Do you know some people in these other areas? Right? Natural hazards create emergencies. Type in the chat the state and color where you live or travel, where you go. And then we're going to learn, you'll see what kind of weather that is. You'll know what it is where you live and where you travel. And then you act accordingly for what supplies you need for where you live. Right? Knowing on what kind of weather you're having or what kind of emergencies may come up, you always then can build a plan, right? You could build a plan to make a kit and put things in it, and backpacks, waist packs. If you go, if you stay, learn some things that you need. And in vehicles, or if you travel on public transportation, the waist packs are pretty good. You need important things that you use every day. There's my favorite. There's the radio, crank radio, flashlights, first aid kit, waters, medicines, personal protection equipment. I like a whistle because maybe I can't talk so long, right? Learning about, you may need some money if the power's down, charge cards don't work. Uh, Phone numbers, items to bring you for comfort. Here's what we do. Even if you don't have a go bag, a pillowcase sometimes helps. You could put things in. So help put things in that you may need to stay if somebody says, okay, they told us we have to go, or if you stay for a while. During a lot of times, even with the COVID, people got kind of anxious and kind of nervous. So if you've got hurricanes or fires and things coming, people may need some help. You may need to look at yourself. How do you take care of yourself? How do you know, by knowing what's going on and preparing with a plan, you'll be able to maybe take care of yourself a little better and to also help others. Some people may need help if you have to evacuate. If law enforcement and local authorities tell you you have to leave, the place is flooding, hurricanes coming, or if you have to stay, you can be helping yourself and others by planning ahead of what to do. What I've learned from the nurses and the doctors lately through all this stress and anxiety from the COVID this last year and more, and other emergencies, I say, does anybody know how to breathe? And some people put in the chat, yeah, I know how to breathe. Well, we're talking about there are different ways to learn how to breathe to help you deal with anxiety. So one's called belly breathing, box breathing, where you take a deep breath, you hold it for a count, you feel the air in your belly. So learn different ways of how to breathe. That could be an assignment for you. Try belly breathing, box breathing, and this helps you calm down. If you learn different ways to breathe, you may help others then say, oh, here, take a breath. Have you ever heard the expression, take a breath? There really are ways to learn to breathe to make you feel better so you could help others. Here is another link for you that sound the alarm. It's very important. We've got a guy that helps us prepare for home fires. The guy's name is Pedro. He's my buddy. He helps me teach a lot, and he helps learn about the smoke detector there. So wherever you are in most states now, you could look for a smoke detector. It should be one on every floor and one in every sleeping area. So number one, it's a good idea to know where they are, where you work. In schools, they're in the ceiling there. And one important thing that we're learning to be prepared for emergencies is there's a family and they are practicing and planning out their fire escape plan. So look at that family, and it looks like you got a stopwatch there that can they get out, and they're at the mailbox. So here's a family that had a plan and they're practicing their home fire escape plan. Very important. If you have to do it at work, at home, at the rec center, wherever you go, know how to get out. Whenever I go someplace, I look for more than one way out. I look for different doorways and things. We're going to teach people learning about fires, what a smoke alarm sounds like, where you go. It's really loud in some office buildings and some rec centers and senior centers. And learn where that safe place is and where to meet outside, and consider and think about all the people that you may have to be part of your group, what they need. Fire and rescue has certainly learned over the last 30 some years that smoke alarms save lives. So we're going to find out where they are. Do you have enough? Find an adult or somebody who knows what to do. There's a way to test them. And the new ones you replace every 10 years. You don't have to worry about doing the batteries. So I would say it's probably a good time to find out where your smoke alarms are. Let everybody in the house know what they sound like. I have people sometimes in some facilities, they didn't know what it sounded like at the senior center. So I need you to have a test so people know what it sounds like and then what they need to do. One of the saddest things the fire department has told me is they go into a house fire and there's been some damage or injury to the people, and they have disabled the smoke alarm and the kitchen fire was not detected. So please don't disable the alarm. If you're cooking in the kitchen and there's one near it that keeps going off, well, have somebody come in and move it to a good, proper place. Have fire and rescue or the Red Cross come and somebody help you learn where you should have them. You cannot keep saying, oh, whenever we're cooking, that goes off. That doesn't help you if it really is a time when you need to escape. Very important lesson to learn for yourself. Fire and rescues tell me a lot of apartments and houses and things, the smoke is toxic and can hurt more people than fire. But if the fire and smoke can make damage and hurt in 5 minutes a whole house inside out an apartment, then you need 2 minutes to get out. So here's what you're learning today. Wherever you are, office, home, apartments, find out how to get out, find a way, more than one way to get out, practice how to get out and find out how long it'll take you. And when you hear and find out what that smoke signal and fire alarm sounds like for wherever you go, and have a place where to meet outside. And when they're safe, call 911. So 2 minutes or less, because the whole place could get filled with smoke. And if there is smoke, people should get low and go. And when you're out, stay out. So I need you out in 2 minutes. I need you to practice. Or if you're used to going to a senior center or a daycare or a summer camp or rec center, at home, wherever you are, find ways out and see how long it takes you to get out. Other important things is there's our guy Pedro. He's practicing with Mia. They learning of what it sounds like, the beep, 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 or how it sounds. They're getting low and go. So all ages practice and have fun learning. If you find out and then somebody says, there's the alarm, there's the smoke, how do we get out of the mall? How do we get out of the store? Which way should we go? Very important to know, practice how to get out of someplace you get in. Here's the test for home. This is a quick action map. This is not when I have 3 days notice a hurricane might come where I live or the hurricane may not come. But this is a right now. The alarm is going off. I've got 2 minutes or less to get out as safely as possible and practice from the rooms you're in and where you're going to meet. When you're out safely, have somebody call 911. So there actually some places will have a map in some assisted livings and apartments and places. There's stores. I find out where the first aid kit is. I find out where the AED is. So learn where things are, make a map, and let's do this. Let's know where we're going to meet. So when someone comes and says, oh, my neighbor's house is burning, let me go to that tree and I'll find that all the children and people are at the tree. So look what's happening here. They practice it, they come out of the house and they're meeting at the tree. So everybody should know where to meet. So the adults can find the children at safe place outside. You cannot go back in and try to find somebody. So we're saying, I'm happy with this family because they practiced the escape plan before they need it. And I need you outside to tell fire and rescue, hey, Granny's upstairs in the hospital bed on an IV and she needs help. Fire and rescue is trained to rescue people. They can do it faster and safer than you can. And guess what? I don't have any fireproof clothing. I don't think you do, unless you happen to have it nearby or in your car. Fire and Rescue has 250 pounds of fireproof clothing, masks, gloves, hats, boots, and they're trained how to rescue people and pets. So I need you out safely as quick as possible, calling 911 or have a neighbor call 911 and be outside so you can tell fire and rescue the kitchen started in the fire and we think somebody's still in the basement. They know how to get in and get somebody and save them faster than you can. Very important. Practice it and be outside. So I think it is so important to try to learn one thing, knowing what hazards, the weather, or if the power's out, or high winds or floods, what can happen where you are and where you travel, where you go, and knowing and learning about how to get in and out of a place. What kind of plan? I know when I teach the summer camp, we have the fire drills just like in school. And we teach what does that school fire alarm and a smoke detector sound like? And where do you meet across the playground? Very important to think ahead. If you have some senior living facilities, is there a percent of those people that really need 5 or 6 people to wheel out the hospital? What are you going to do? What kind of things? Is there somebody who we have to say, close the door and safeguard them and seal out the smoke and fire and get outside and tell fire and rescue, we need your expertise to help a person we could not get out. I need you out safely. So find out where you go, what kind of plans to have, what you can possibly do. Then think about a preparedness kit. It could be a waste pack. It could be something small you have with you with Band-Aids in it. What else does it have? It has your ID in it, however small. If you have a pant pocket, you put in your Ziploc bag with your meds, your phone numbers. Call this person if you find me unconscious. Fire and rescue is trained to go ahead and call people. Learn what it is if you have a smartphone, on how to set up your smartphone so fire and rescue and police don't have to have a password, but just from the top of the phone, they could press the alert emergency button and it will automatically send an alert to those that you have chosen with the star on them for emergencies. So learn this technology, learn about what to do, have some piece of paper on your person. I call that a preparedness kit. It's not just having water or a Band-Aids, it's also having your ID and phone numbers and things so people can help you. Check out your jurisdiction. In some places, the police and fire and rescue hand out little circles. They hand out little stickers that you could put on your door, right? They're little things and they know that it says pet inside. Or there's other stickers and colors that fire and rescue and police put out that you're part of a program that when you come in, they look on your refrigerator, there's a magnet, it has my picture on it, and tells all about me. And they look down on the kitchen floor and there's Marco all passed out. Right there is a little magnetic thing that's a file of life and it tells about me. So find out in your jurisdiction, do they have these stickers for pets or for special needs or for colors in it? Then they get alerted that when they go inside, that they'll find this file of life or this piece of paper that tells them things. So there's a lot of one things you could learn today, a lot of one things you could do for wherever you are, wherever you live, and start being trained in different kinds of things about first aid. And what do we learn today? One big thing about learning first aid is having some of the supplies. You learn first aid, you have a Band-Aid, right? You learn first aid, you get that free first aid kit from the Red Cross and others. Find out. There's little booklets. There's things to have to do. There's hands only CPR where you don't have to put your mouth and face on somebody. Learn some of these things that you could do at home from videos on hands only and things like that. So learn about stuff, learn for yourself, learn, practice, and then share with others. I think this is one of the most important things that you could do of yourself, how not to be hurt as much. Remember about the smoke, getting low and go and smoke. Don't go looking for your phone. Do not go back looking for your purse or your driver's license and choke, and then you don't get out anyway. I need you out safe, and then fire and rescue will help with the rest of the things. Now I'd like you to try to put in the chat your questions and your thoughts, your ideas. Is that to put in the chat, please, where you're from. What is one thing that you remembered? Maybe you heard all this before. And now maybe you're saying, is there one thing I remembered or I think I'm going to do? So let's fill up the chat there and put in some things on what's going on with you and where you are. If you're working from home or you're working in rec centers or senior centers, what kind of places do you go to? You might find me at Lowe's or Home Depot, and I know more than one way out wherever I go shopping. So let's tell me what we've got here in the chat.
Marco,
yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful and thought-provoking presentation. We have a question coming from Washington, D.C., and the question reads, how often should the Go Pack be updated?
That's a question that, number one, I am so happy that the way your question is worded, it's like you already have one. I like that so much because that means you're already prepared for emergencies. And if I've got some food packaged, air packaged in my Go Kit, it's at the bottom. I just opened my Go Kit up the other day and I said, oh, let me see where my food and my granola, my bars, my health bars are. And I found it and I took it out and it said 2014. And I said, but guess what? It's an emergency. So, and if you have a lot of water, what some people do, they recycle, they look at their Go Kit, they lay it all out on the floor or on the table. And then if things haven't expired, many times you could eat it still beyond the expiration date. So number one, if it's an emergency, you can still drink. I have old water in there in vacuum packed things for water. But you could have a bottles of water and they may have a date on it that's old. But if it's an emergency, check with your health advisor. You probably can still drink it.
Okay.
But I would say periodically look out there, see what's on there. I went in and looked and I had some Band-Aids I've had in there for 20 years. And then I said, well, let me get some fresh Band-Aids. I like bigger ones and waterproof ones. Do you have the sunscreen in your pack? And maybe that's already 5 years old if it's been in the bottom of your go bag. So some of us have had go bags for a long time. And you're right. We got to open them up, spread them out, see what's in there. Do you have a change of clothes? Do you have a change of socks? Do you have, sometimes I said, oh, I got plenty of these plastic gloves on. They were all stuck together in my go bag. So I needed to get some new personal protective equipment and things like that. So yeah, just look at it, see what you got. And guess what? As you're learning, most often when you open it up to see how things are, you're adding something new you just found out about. Maybe you didn't have the crank flashlight before. Now it's a crank flashlight. It's a crank radio with the weather band. And it's also a crank thing that charges your phone when you have the right plug. So here you go. I'm telling a lot of people, the next time you open your Go Kit, put some new stuff in that you learned about.
Okay. We have another question and it reads, how much is enough water?
I think we had a slide on that back in there, so these may be made available to you to look that up. There's so many gallons per person per time and day. And there's sometimes people think only in terms of water for drinking, and you need so many gallons, right? But then I'm saying if you have warning, you have a plan. I fill up the bathtub if I know something's coming, because you want water for drinking, you want water for sanitary, and water to flush the toilet. So it's not just for how many sips, but I'm saying have a lot of water. Let's look at how many in your household and how many gallons you need, how many cups a day. Let's look back on those slides. Let's ask your medical professionals. They may tell you some people may need more water because of their medications and their conditions. And very important part about the water is what medications go with how much water you drink and what does that mean to your medications.
Okay. And that we have another question similar. You mentioned belly breathing. Are there other
Yes.
types or kinds of breathing that we should know about and practice?
Yeah, the other one that some people like is called box breathing. But mostly people were saying like for just say suck your air in and count 1, 2, 3, 4 and feel it down in your belly, feel it inside corner. And there's ways to count. And then when you hold it, you count 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it's like release, count 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's incredible videos on breathing, type in box breathing, belly breathing, and there's diagrams and videos on how to breathe. Talking to the school nurses, to doctors, to healthcare people, uh, there's exercise people have a special way when they teach you exercises. They also can say, oh, I just like anything, take a breath. Once I said, um, I was told, heard on the radio, a hurricane's coming, alert, alert. It may have rain and storms. And I found out I was getting nervous. I had to tell myself, take a breath, hold it. 1, 2, 3, release, hold it. So it helps to take a breath. You'd be surprised. Some people stop breathing. They don't realize it when they start thinking. If you have to take a quiz or an exam, I used to hold my breath the whole time I'm taking the quiz. So uh, you could use it anytime. It's not just for emergencies. Take a breath, and you can learn how to do that. Neat videos online for that.
Okay, thank you. Next question is in the spirit of this being hurricane season and rainy season and fires. So the question reads, could you give us some tips about how to better understand weather alerts, especially here in Washington, D.C., since there seems to be fewer weather emergencies as opposed to the West Coast?
Yeah, that's a good thing to learning of what could happen in your area. Like yesterday, we've got quite a few alerts that came on the phones or on the radio. And sometimes if you're watching TV or listening to some music, it'll stop and say emergency. There are times when it's right now. And the interesting thing of learning where you live, in some cities are low by rivers. And if there's mountain ranges, we'll get alerts, and the alert center comes out of Baltimore or DC or Northern Virginia. And it depends. Look at the weather map. And many times they have them the on your phones. There's weather maps, or you could go on a weather station, and they will tell you, follow it. I like to see a pulsating weather map, and they've got me already here where I live by the city, but I see that it's going in the mountains. It's coming up off the Chesapeake Bay and it's going along the mountain ridges, and it misses DC. Or Baltimore's closer if it's coming that way up the coast to Delaware, New York. So learning about what kind of weather you have, and many times it seems like only certain parts get dumped high winds and all the water, like yesterday. We had a lot of water in certain parts and trees down in certain parts. So when it's closer to the event, you get those alerts, warnings, you have time, watches, you have time, but then some warnings are alert, and they'll tell you it's here now. So you could learn how your weather people say that and what it means where you live.
We have just a few more questions, very timely for yesterday's storm. One question reads, could you give us some tips on how to safely use a home generator?
Wow. There are different kind of backup generators, electrical backup generators. They're actually being sold in the last 5 years that almost look like an air conditioning unit, and they're electrical, and they kick on and they're tapped into, they're being recharged when things are okay, and they kick on for the whole house or for the apartment or the condo high rise. So sometimes they're electrical backup. Other times they're generators that you could buy at a store, and you put gasoline in them. And then people plug in extension cords for those into refrigerators and things like that if you have medication. But if it's the gasoline, there's a lot of regulations in fire and rescue about that. They're not even allowed, I think, to be in garages. So if it's a gasoline generator backup, they're on sale many times. You've got to know how far away it is, how long it'll last, how much gasoline it will burn, and will you run out of gasoline if the power's out more than 3 or 4 days? A truck hit my power line and the power was out for 6 days in one part of the neighborhood and 9 days on one street. So those people, if you didn't have enough gasoline to keep refilling the gasoline generator. So is it electric generator? Is it gasoline? Is it wired into the house and will kick on automatically? There's different things to learn about battery backups or just generators that you work gasoline powered. So it's a good thing to learn, but you need professional advice about the codes and regulations of where you live and what kind of house or facility you're doing it for.
Okay, well, thank you. And that leads us into our next question. And the next question is, do local fire departments still distribute smoke alarms free of charge? And if not, where should a person go to get a free smoke detector or alarm?
Yes, prior to COVID, the Red Cross and the fire departments give out free. You go on that slide there, you'll see we had Pedro, and that was the link to find out about the home fires and the fire. There's programs that we have, and I think they still do it. The Red Cross will start it up again in conjunction with your local fire department. So I would say still contact them. It's always a good thing to know what's the closest fire department. Give them a call or an email and say, hey, when you starting that up again? COVID's kind of allowed people to go in other homes. So yeah, Red Cross does that, and local fire guys may do it seasonally in cycles.
Okay. And as a follow-up to that question, is there a cap on the number of detectors that a home might receive?
Ah, okay. Well, many times that depends on how much donations we have.
Hmm.
So if fire and rescue like called me into a certain part of Maryland outside of DC that was real old homes and where they had a lot of occurrence of kitchen fires and small old electrical things. And so in order to get the whole community, we only could give 3 out. But we would take a note if the fire marshal said they need more. But between the local fire and the Red Cross, we often would try to cover a whole community. But if it's one house and you have the experts coming in and saying, oh my goodness, yeah, you need here, here, and here, then we could work on that. But I've got a lot of them at Lowe's, Home Depot, and other places. They come in packs, a 3-pack and 5-pack, and they're 10 years. They last 10 years. And very important is that they talk to each other. So if you have 3 floors in your house, a basement, a main floor, and the bedroom floor, you buy a 3-pack, and then you've got that legal limit, and they will talk. If one goes off, the others will go off. If you have then another pack and you put them in the bedrooms, they all will talk together if you buy them at once. And sometimes, since now they're 10-year ones, I'd rather just replace them all at the same time. And you're good for 10 years, and they all will talk to each other because that's how they're designing them now. So I would make sure that by code, you learn how many sleeping areas, how many floors, and then work with your local fire department or your Red Cross. And we did give that link to that site for the fire and smoke
Yes,
alarms.
and thank you. And we have one last question. And the question asks, are there mental health or occupational or other types of therapists on site at a Red Cross evacuation site?
Yes, yes, and that's yes for the new normal. We've been trained over the last 16 months to do things virtually. But within the Red Cross, we have professional staff. And if we're having an evacuation site or a shelter, even if it's open for a day, and we're trying to find out if we have to open a shelter with the local officials, or if we're going to help people in motels or hotels. But there are mental health, and you can talk to us about if you really are feeling nervous and you say, hey, Marco, I keep trying to learn how to breathe, but I just don't feel well. This is all too much for me. I lost everything. My whole house is all burnt up, or there's flooded, and I don't know where my family members are. Yes, we have people who can come and talk with you and refer. We can refer you and be with you. We're very concerned with how you feel if you've been displaced or if you're going through these emergencies. We can find some help for you within the Red Cross and your local family services for your local jurisdictions. The Red Cross works with all the local officials and to give you the best care possible under the emergency situation.
Well, I think that is a perfect segue. We are at 1:59, and want to give you, if there aren't any additional questions for the chat, we'd like to thank Marco again for your thoughtful and thought-provoking presentation. I can tell you, I downloaded the app and I failed miserably at the questions, so I've got some homework to do to get myself prepared, and I promise to do so. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank you, Marco, again for all that you do and your service to our community, to this country, and what will we do without the American Red Cross? So we thank you. We thank our participants today. And Marco has graciously agreed to share his slides with us. So you'll see them again. And thank you. And we give you back your day.
Thank you. Get those apps and be ready. Thank you very much.
Thank you.